This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Welcome to Killer Innovations. I'm your host, Phil McKinney. We are actually on the road this week. I am in Silicon Valley, catching up on some meetings here. But earlier this week, I actually posted a picture and a little bit of a story behind a very interesting innovation that I came across. I posted it over at the innovators.community, and then it got posted onto a bunch of social media. A number of you have responded to that. And in return, actually, the CEO behind the story actually reached out to me. And through some great logistics jumping, we were actually able to get on the call this week. And I've invited the CEO to join to talk about this story. And what it is I came across a story about a company that had won a design award specifically for unique packaging design. Now, in the case of packaging design, I've had a little bit of experience in that. It was important when I was CTO at HP, but this is unique packaging design attached to wine, not a product you typically would associate with doing some form of unique packaging. So this week, I've actually invited the CEO of Garçon to join us, Santiago Navarro. Santiago, thank you for taking the time. I know it's kind of late there in London this evening.
Pleasure, Phil. Thanks for, first of all, sharing our innovation in your community, and I guess it getting on shared. I'll start by saying that I choose to, as the co-founder and CEO, watch out for what's being said about our innovation. And where possible, I do try to engage with those who are commenting to A, answer questions, B, inform more, but also importantly to sometimes correct factual inaccuracies, which was not the case with yourself or with your community, but it is sometimes the case. I do mostly restrict my communications to the business channels, so LinkedIn and Twitter. I do tend to leave Facebook and Instagram and others work for themselves. But yes, thank you for your interest. I know that you're probably more commonly talking about innovation in tech or software or product-based, and probably wine innovation not, and we can come back to that later. But thank you, and hi to all your listeners.
Yeah, it was interesting. One, as people who've known me for a long time know, I don't drink alcohol. My wife, however, is a huge ice wine fan. I mean, I've got like an entire wine cellar. Yes, I know it's funny. I have a wine cellar, and it's completely full of ice wine. So, but it was interesting when I came across it because, you know, when you think about wine and the wine industry, you think about its history, its traditions, the way things always have been done. And it was interesting because when I posted the picture of your flat wine bottle, so it's literally not rounded, it's flat, and it shows it inside its cardboard box. So you can hop over to the innovators.community and check out the picture and comment on it there. It was interesting of how many people in the community all came up with different reasons why someone would come up with a flat wine bottle. And it went across all possible ranges as to why someone would do that. So give us a little context into what's the history of this, and where did the idea originally spark from?
Yeah, so let me first actually, so I will answer the why, and I will mention the origins of the invention in a moment. But let me start by saying that you're correct in saying that the words of innovation and wine are not regularly connected. And actually, if you look to wine primary packaging, so bottle in particular, you need to go back 200 years for the last significant innovation in wine bottles. So 200 years ago, mid-1800s, we were drinking wine out of a vessel that looked more like an onion with a long neck. The primary appellations of Bordeaux and Burgundy, so those are grape growing regions, started to come up with their own shapes. Those bottles have moved with the main wine varieties across the globe. So if you take a Cabernet Sauvignon from California, I know, Phil, you're in California at the moment, or a Chardonnay from California, they will be bottled in the Burgundian or Bordeaux style from where that grape variety originates. Now, I'll refrain from making this a history lesson on the world of wine primary packaging, but what I will say is that the innovation came about because I was running an online wine store and I was shipping product to consumers' homes in a 19th century vessel. And I make the point there that we were living in a 21st century world using a 19th century vessel. So long story short, and I can elaborate should you want in a second, Phil, we were trying to fit a square peg in a round hole, and that doesn't work. And my original business never went forward. Primarily, one of the reasons was complexity in packaging. But then later on, I decided to look at and focus on trying to enhance, improve, innovate, disrupt the primary packaging of wine, which is round glass bottles.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because you think about, okay, the round bottles versus the flat bottles, right? Some of the ideas that came across in the community was things like, well, does that really reduce your shipping cost? And as you and I were talking before the show, at HP, we actually redid our packaging so we could fit in another 8% more laptops into an air freight jet coming from Shanghai to the United States. And it was a big success, had a huge impact on cost, etc. And people thought about all those issues. But your first business and the solution in the second business, one of the things that one of the people in the community acknowledged after you posted some of your comments about it was around just delivery of the wine to people's homes and the opening in the door in order to deliver a package is square, not round.
Yeah, correct. So in the UK, we have what we call a letterbox, which is a rectangular slot, approximately 40 mil deep and considerably wider. That allows entry of mail into the home. Now, I know there's some amazing innovations going on with smart locks, allowing couriers and other e-com companies to access homes when the resident is not in. But we have an easier access point in the UK, and we were looking to deliver wine seamlessly. That means nobody needing to be there, and you make a successful delivery first time round. We were looking to achieve that. Now, if you take figures, and I know my UK market figures better, but you can probably multiply them significantly for the US. In the UK, failed deliveries or unsuccessful deliveries cost retailers, consumers, and everyone else 1.6 billion pounds a year.
Wow.
So there's a significant cost there from failed deliveries, and more consumers are looking to take product more regularly in smaller volumes, whilst traditionally in products like wine was delivered less frequently in larger volumes. So what we were looking to do was to find an alternative way. And sometimes the beauty with innovation is you're focused on one very specific problem, but if you address that problem really well, you unlock a whole bunch of other benefits. And that's why, whilst we're well known for letterbox delivery, we're also extremely unlocking many other opportunities, including the point you made about your HP packaging and an 8% saving. By going flat over round on the same volume, we save 40%, 40%, because we're cutting air on two of the corners. So the edges are slightly rounded. I do invite people to go to your community, innovators.community, and to check out the image, because it's a replica of the real deal, but it's flattened.
Yeah, and I mean, you are right? It's, what we talk about in the community is around what we call constraint-based innovation. If you have no constraints, meaning unlimited people, unlimited dollars, unlimited options, it's hard to kind of quantify it down to solve the real problem. In this case, you were dealing with a very specific constraint, which was, how do I improve first-time delivery when shipping something that is not a shape that fits into anything that you can guarantee that you can deliver to, even if somebody's not home?
I fully agree, Phil, actually. And the other constraint was that there is an element or a strong element of heritage and tradition, which is really important. And on top of that, we wanted to ensure that the resulting product looked great on a dining table. The aesthetic, the emotional, and the experiential are so incredibly important with wine beyond many other FMCG products. And so that was really critical. And I can elaborate more on that as we talk further.
Yes, we're going to wrap up. We're going to take a quick commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with Santiago Navarro from Garçon, talking about the flat wine bottle. And don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this quick commercial break. Welcome back to Killer Innovations. We are here in Silicon Valley, picking up our conversation with Santiago Navarro from Garçon. This whole conversation got started with a single post I did on a very interesting packaging design around the flat wine bottle. So, Santiago, we were talking before the break about a little bit about the tradition, but some of the other challenges you had is how do you design something that also looks great on the table, but also there's other kinds of things that for those of us who aren't in the wine industry wouldn't even think about that you would have to satisfy in some kind of a new design like this. So talk us through that a little bit.
Yes, actually, we broke it down into looking at the process as a Venn diagram with three circles overlapping in the center. You have the emotional, the experiential, the aesthetic in one. You have the functional and the I guess the functional in the other. And then finally, the sustainable. And it's how do you get a pack that sits in between all three that will do the job, will be the right wine bottle for the 21st century for a whole host of different reasons. And I guess the emotional and the experiential is so important because if you look across the last 200 years, the last significant primary packaging innovation in wine was bag-in-box. And bag-in-box does a great job from the functional perspective and also from a sustainable perspective if you choose to split the box and the bag apart after you've used it and recycled it properly. But where it misses out is on the emotional and the experiential, which for anyone who drinks wine, I know you said, Phil, your wife drinks ice wine. It's one of the most beautiful elements we put on the table that's inanimate. So the guests are normally the nicest thing around the table. And then you've probably got the bottle there, which has pride of place on the dining table and is a talking point. We have, it's an amazing engagement. So within these three elements, trying to find the pack that works in all three for us was fundamental, recognizing that in order for our invention and innovation to be adopted, both by consumers, but importantly by the world of wine, then we needed to come up with a pack that did embrace, did respect, did adhere to the traditions and heritage of wine. And that is specifically that most of wine, wherever it's grown in the world, is bottled in two primary shapes or slight derivatives of those shapes. Those are the Bordeaux bottle, which is straighter with higher edges at the top, or the more slopy bottle that is the Burgundy bottle, best associated with a Cabernet Sauvignon and a red grape variety as you'd get in California, or likewise, again, because you're in California, the Chardonnay in the Burgundian bottle. And so we needed to innovate within that space because for us, it was also important to be able to work with wine growers across the globe and allow them to use a pack that didn't make them change that heritage and tradition, which is so important in the wine world.
Yeah, I mean, it's always I get the aesthetics, right? Because, the wine bottle does take a position of prominence, at the table or if you're at a restaurant, whether it's chilled or on the table. But it is interesting, right? With even the bottle shape, the length of the neck, what does the bottle shoulder look like at its slope? And it's interesting when my guess is when you talk to designers, there's lots of rationale as to why the old shape was. But in your case, you had to fit into so that you would be accepted by the wine growers, but at the same time, have kind of a nod to that history so you're not just totally throwing everything out the window, correct?
Yeah, correct, because we didn't think it was necessary to throw everything out the window. If we had thought, okay, there's only one way this can happen, it needs to be, totally different, and those bottle shapes don't work in any way, shape, or form. It would be one thing. What we have managed to do, and it links back to the point I made before about the 40%. The only place where the bottle is slightly less efficient in logistics is there is airspace around the neck, where the body is wider than neck, and there's the airspace. But we've also, because of special ratios, we've come up with a unique bottle where we can lay two bottles along the top, removing the airspace from that area, and actually achieving double cube utilization on a pallet, which means that we get closer to 50% space saving rather than 40 if we're just lining up the bottles and not removing that airspace. So it is fundamentally important. Wine is not a great margin business, and anything we can do to improve margins by reducing logistics costs is very important for the industry. But really, really more important than that is any savings in logistics also equates to savings in carbon emissions. And greenhouse gas emissions are a big, big problem. You know more than most in the United States, because you are, you get a lot of bad weather, way beyond what has been seen before. And Al Gore does a phenomenal job at explaining that better than I would. And so for us, it was very important to look at that, because we consume somewhere in the region of 33 to 35 billion bottles of wine a year across the globe, and the carbon footprint from them is grotesque and unnecessary.
Plus, there's the other characteristic of your bottle, right? If people look at it, it looks like you just created a square glass bottle, but it's actually not made of glass. It's 100% post-consumer recyclable plastic, correct?
Yes, so it's post-consumer recycled plastic, and it's recyclable afterwards, which is why we also uniquely use or very sort of somewhat uniquely, because not many people are using it, we use a plastic screw cap, not an aluminium one, and that's because we want it to be fully recyclable afterwards. But yes, unfortunately, glass is a terrible material for distance selling, for e-commerce, for sending product. It's heavy, it shatters easily. It's simply not made for complex supply chains as we have in the world of wine.
So the challenge you have then, though, is you get also the pushback, right? It's the old joke about screw top caps on wine, on cheap wines, and plastic bottles. It's like going in and getting an energy drink out of the cooler at the local corner store.
We thought we might, and I was apprehensive when we launched our product to the world. But we've been embraced with so much reward in terms of reputational traction, awards. You found out about us through the Dow Packaging Innovations Award. We've won many other awards. We've been covered in around 200 articles in the English language in just the last year. So it's a resounding yes. We get it. We like it. We support it. And for that, we're extremely grateful that influencers, experts, and consumers seem ready to adopt innovation in wine bottles like they've never done before.
Well, and that's interesting. We're going to take another quick commercial break, but when we come back, I'd like to talk through kind of how you started with the idea and what did it take really to turn it into something real, right? And then talk a little bit about how's it doing today. I know you make wines available in the bottles, but how's the bottle, the whole new bottle concept, the new packaging design getting traction? So when we come back, we're going to pick up our conversation with Santiago Navarro from Garçon. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Killer Innovations. I'm your host, Phil McKinney. We are continuing our conversation with Santiago Navarro from Garçon. This is the flat wine bottle discussion that's been going on over at theinnovators.community. It's also been up on my LinkedIn page and my Facebook page. A number of you have commented on it. So Santiago, we were talking before, about the innovating of the wine bottle and kind of a little bit more about the bottle itself. But give us a little bit of insight of what did it take from the time you had that nirvana aha moment to where you could actually say your innovation was available in the marketplace? What did that take, and what was involved?
Yeah, great question, Phil, because actually many might think the idea is the tough one. And it took us many, many months of brainstorming and considering what alternatives were out there in order to achieve the functional benefit whilst respecting the aesthetic, emotional, and also addressing the sustainable. And then when we had that eureka moment, we realized actually after that executing was going to be even tougher, because we realized from the outset that glass was not going to be possible. We needed to use a lightweight, strong material that was also readily available but sustainable, something we could hopefully create into a circular loop. We decided to use post-consumer recycled PET. That's the sort of plastic we use for drinks bottles. Readily available, cheap, resembles glass, and so would do the job perfectly. But then unfortunately, we had the constraints around the shape and the design we wanted in order to respect the heritage and tradition of wine. And we had restrictions and limitations around what we were able to produce at a bottle at scale. And because the world of wine is so large, so somewhere in the region of 33 to 35 billion bottles of wine a year, we wanted a system that could scale into the millions, hundreds of millions, potentially into the billions. And so we needed to use certain machines and certain technology to blow these bottles, which limited us. So we went through countless changes. We partnered up with an international packaging giant called the RPC Group, specifically a division of theirs called M&H Plastics. They're primarily based in the UK. They have multiple sites across the world. They have one in the US in Winchester, Virginia. We partnered with them, and then over nearly a year, we went through many, many design options which didn't work for one of the elements. Most of the time, it looked too remotely different from a wine bottle, where I said, this is not going to be the game-changing product. Then push always what's possible in limitations of the machine. And finally, after many, many months and probably burning as much patience as I could from our very kind production partner, we finally managed to get the bottle that I thought could potentially disrupt the bottle that's been around for 200 years. And what has seemingly been proven in the months that bottle's been out in the market since April is that April of this year, 2018, that clearly it has the opportunity to disrupt. And so I guess a key message is, if you believe in something strong enough, don't give up. And we continually just tweaked. And I'm talking about fractions of a millimeter at times, just moving slight elements, because you get to a position where the ratios are right. And then aesthetically on the eye, you say, this is perfect. And it's a sort of Fibonacci numbers. There's something like in nature, you look at something and say, that's meant to be. And until it's at that position, it's just not right. And we got to that point, and we were ready to go. And then we started producing the bottles. And yes, so that's a long answer to your question.
So what was the total time from the time you had the idea until what you would say you had the product ready to go? What was the length of time?
A couple of years in total, actually. So yes, it took us that long. It took us a year of actual R&D, very intense once we had chosen the partner. But it took us about another year to go from developed idea, not just idea, but developed idea, to manage to find a partner that would work with us to then be able to do that other year of specific R&D with a partner. So unless you have infinite amounts of money or infinite amounts of power, then you have to go through the normal course, but never give up if you believe in what you're doing.
So talk me through, okay, now you've gone through that experience, right? You had your first business, doing wine delivery. You had that frustration, which became kind of the catalyst for solving that with your new wine bottle. And then you started down that path. Now you're kind of at the point where you're getting a lot of press attention. You're getting a lot of packaging people interested in what you're doing. If you could go back to the very beginning and give yourself one or two pieces of advice back when you started, what would they be?
So I think the primary one is and this is a lesson well learned for me, if you're developing a product that's a physical product, then do anything within your powers to get a physical version of it as soon as possible. We spent way too long talking to people with line drawings on paper or on screen or on a phone. And when it's a physical product and the tactile nature of it could make a whole difference, then that's fundamentally important. And in fact, some of the very first imagery that's out there of our bottle is a very simple MVP prototype. We made 10 of them in China. We eventually didn't make our full production in China, but we got those bottles and we filled them with wine and we put them on a table with wine glasses and we showed them with a pizza and people got it. Unfortunately, before that, we were talking to the industry and to potential business partners with line drawings, 2D line drawings on paper. That's a really, really bad idea. If anyone is listening to this and has a product out there that they want to try to take to market, create your MVP or physical MVP that best replicates what you're doing without spending much money at all. And there's normally hacks that you can do so. And try and get that done as quickly as possible, because I believe if we had done that earlier, I wouldn't have wasted so much time, and time is money, talking to people with a drawing that they couldn't get. Normally your idea, your invention is well developed in your own mind because you think about it every waking second of the day. But then you just show it to someone who doesn't know it and they've got 20 minutes in a meeting to get it. And then it's very hard. But the minute you give them a product in their hand, they get it. It's just totally game changing.
Great advice. So, how is the wine bottle doing? I know on your site you actually have wines available in the square bottles, right?
Yeah. So we're a B2B company. We sell bottles and we sell bottles filled with wine that we source from various places around the world. The product is doing very well. We take on a new stockist or a new business partner every week at the moment. We're talking to some of the leading giants in wine logistics across the whole supply chain. But also there are spaces, as some of your members, your community members notice, there's spaces like the airline industries where we have a lot of interest. Actually, specifically some really big airlines in the US who are really interested in the pack because it's much easier for them to hold, to serve, to store. It just works much better. Also, because it's a sustainable material, then they can use it much better and address their CSR goals. So yes, we're doing phenomenally well. We don't rush anyone into the process because we are innovating in a space that hasn't had much innovation in the last 200 years. And the last thing we want to make people feel is like that we're selling them something they don't want to buy. We're confident that once they understand, they will be on board with it and they will thank their lucky stars that they made that decision to go on board. But for us, it's fundamentally important to take our business customers through an innovation journey, not a sales process.
So, Santiago, as we wrap up this segment of the show, if people want to keep track of where what you're doing and about the work around the bottle, give us the URL here real quickly and where people can follow you.
Yeah, so the URL is www.garconwines.com. It's pronounced Garçon Wines, but it's spelled Garcon wines in the plural.com. We're also over on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on all the various social channels. You can also follow me on Twitter on Santiago Biz. That's Santiago, like the city, and Biz, B-I-Z. Everything that's relevant or interesting, I share, my company shares, and we're active and we engage with you. So if you have questions, reach out on Innovators Community or else come ping us direct.
Yeah, actually, Santiago has joined us over at the Innovators Community, so go check that out, the innovators.community. The community is free and open to everybody, but it's an area where we talk about innovation and creativity. Santiago, thank you very much for your time. Don't go anywhere, listeners. We've got segment 4 coming up, 5 minutes to new ideas, and we'll be right back after this quick commercial break. Back in the early days of this show, I would share what I called a killer question in each episode. These questions were designed to be used in your personal, team, or organization's innovation efforts. Now, based on feedback from listeners just like you, we've decided to bring it back with some improvements. Each episode of the Killer Innovations has a segment that I'm now calling 5 Minutes to New Ideas. It's designed for the creative mind looking for that next great idea. Each episode will challenge you to think differently about yourself, your business, and your products and services by asking unique, funny, and sometimes crazy questions. These questions are designed to force you to look beyond the obvious and to uncover ideas and opportunities you never before considered. So, get out your notebook and be ready to uncover that game-changing idea. Here is 5 Minutes to New Ideas. A big part of any business is being aware of and responding to the life cycles of the industry and its customers. Some of these are easy to see. You only need a cursory understanding of the effects of OPEC on gas prices in the early 70s to understand why cars became more fuel efficient in that decade. Other reasons are hard to see. Some criteria can be faddish, based on things such as color or brand. Others are based on external influences. For years, the cell phone industry fought to offer the smallest, thinnest possible phone. That's what customers wanted. Now those same customers are prioritizing access to the web over the size of the phone. This has reversed what was seen as a key and unshakable evolution trend towards smaller phones. Now customers want larger phones with bigger screens. Sometimes trends can be reversed by something completely outside your control. Something that changes the buying decision. What will these same consumers want as they get older? Will full web access and streaming music and video be a priority? Or will their need change as their eyesight and hearings fade? Remember the cycle part of life cycle. You may lose the connection with your customers at certain stages of their lives, but regain it again later. It's like the young man who buys a sports car when he gets out of college, trades it in for a minivan when he marries and has kids, and finally reverts back to the sports car as an empty nester. Don't assume that a customer is lost forever just because they've shifted their allegiances for the time being. If you can maintain some kind of link during the years they are not using your product, you still have a good shot at winning them back again when their needs and your services match up better. We are rarely fortunate enough to know exactly how our customers' needs will change. We simply know that they will. The simplest way to anticipate how radically your customers' needs and wants may evolve is to look at the past. Think about how our expectations of personal transportation have evolved. When my great-grandfather needed transportation, he looked for a sturdy horse and a well-made saddle. My father wanted a car. One of my first vehicles was a motorcycle, as it was all I could afford at the time. Simply understanding what products fell in and out of use isn't enough. You need to consider the entwined relationship between people and the products that allow their lives to evolve. The more our grandparents and our parents came to rely on going wherever they wanted, the more their lives were built around that very premise. My great-grandfather needed to live near where he worked. He couldn't have had a 50-mile commute to work. Yet now we assume that this is normal. Understanding this constant back and forth between the products we use and how they affect our lives can help you predict how this relationship will evolve in the future. What will personal transportation look like 10 years in the future? Will new traffic flow and work scheduling solutions allow greater mobility and the continuation on suburban lifestyle? Or will people become so frustrated with ever-worsening commutes that they return to dense urban areas or flee to the rural ones? Could these changes affect your customers' buying decisions? And if so, what are you going to do about it? What other cycles like this can you start to anticipate now? Stay close to your existing customers and talk to them. Realize that they might not understand their own needs. It's up to you to ask the right question that will get you a more nuanced perspective on what is driving them and their lives. Their buying decisions are not going to be the same 3 or even 4 years from now. So never stop asking, what will my future customers' buying criteria be? To get to what is driving the real change, you need to ask, what are the ways your future customers' lives are changing? How will that influence what they buy? And what will they abandon and no longer purchase as their lives change? By challenging yourself and your team to think about your customer's future, you stand a great chance of staying ahead of those inevitable changes. I'm Phil McKinney, and thanks for listening. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join in. If you have any comments or suggestions, drop me a note at phil@killerinnovations.com. Beyond this show, I write about my personal experiences of being in the innovation game for the last 2 decades. Topics include innovation, creativity, culture, team building, metrics, frustrations, leadership, and how to win. You can find that content over at philmckinney.com. You can also find out information about my book, Beyond the Obvious, including extensive excerpts over at beyondtheobvious.com. You can find hardcover, digital, and audio versions of my book on Amazon or wherever you get your books from. Now, the reason I started this show back in 2005 was to pay back my early mentor. My first mentor, Bob Davis, invested an immense amount of time in training and coaching me, which had a major impact on my career. When I went back and asked him how I could pay him back, he laughed and said I couldn't. I had to pay it forward. If I could ask for a favor, could you help me pay it forward? How? 1, by giving us a rating wherever you get your podcast, as that helps spread the word. And 2, by telling others about the show. If you want to be part of the conversation between the shows, I hang out in the Innovators community on Slack. The Innovators community is a private community of vetted innovators who help each other succeed. Check it out at theinnovators.community. This episode of Killer Innovations was produced by the Innovators Network. You can find the show notes and the entire show catalog going back to 2005 at killerinnovations.com. I'll talk to you next week, and in the meantime, go out and change the world with your killer innovation. Bye-bye.